Good morning. Wow, we're in November. Welcome to Collision Coffee Talk. I'm running a little slower and more behind than normal. Um, so apologies for, I think this is going to be a little, this is we're going to jump around a little bit on this one. There's some things that I haven't covered for time purposes in the last couple of weeks. And so there's some things that I will get to this week. And then most people, there's a lot of people, I don't want to say most people, there's a lot of people getting in a plane today and heading toward Viva Las Vegas. And we're going to talk about that as well. Uh, I really need more coffee. Usually I've already get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do this. And I've typically had one cup by the time I kind of get going. I knew I was going to be traveling. So I started organizing. I was traveling this weekend and I started organizing things a little bit sooner. But here we go. All right. State Farm is sued by Illinois Department of Insurance and Attorney General. We're going to talk about that. It's happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm just kind of getting caught up on it. Voice activated artificial intelligence is on display. We're going to go over that as it relates to collision repair. The CAPA weekly recall updates. I got another message about how do you find them, how do you get them. It was an attorney that was getting ready to do some court prep or some trial prep. And so I thought it would just be a really good thing to go back over that whole process, how you get your name on that list. Bodyshops have organized and sued the state of Oklahoma, and I'm so happy about this one. I cannot wait to share it with everybody. And then we're going to talk about should State Farm be kicked out of some industry events? There's going to be a lot of insurers in Vegas this week, and quite frankly, they don't belong there in a lot of events that they're going to be included in and clapped for and logos on some things. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the sham of the Fram bankruptcy, or really the parent company that owned Fram. I think if you've growing up as a kid and you're always, maintenance, air filters, oil filters, all that kind of stuff, and you'd go down to the local auto store and buy a Fram filter and just an historic brand. So for bankruptcy around that brand, that hurts a lot. But that the company that owned them also owned Trico wipers, which I think a lot of OEs. I noticed that one of the debtors in this is Volkswagen. So that should be interesting. We'll talk about that one. The state of Michigan is in a panic over a bunch of new bills that got introduced over the last 30 days or so. So we'll sum that up. And then we're just gonna have a little discussion on whether insurance companies are out of control. You're definitely gonna want to stay for that one because I don't think it's gonna go how a lot of people think it's gonna go. All right, let's talk about this lawsuit. So the state of Illinois, the Attorney General, sued State Farm on behalf of the Department of Insurance. Now, I want to make sure that we sort of um, cover this one the right way, right? So, um, over the course of from like November of 2024 up through August of 2025, the state made several requests for State Farm to produce some information. Now that covered across multiple entities that are under the umbrella of State Farm. So if you know how insurance companies are set up, you have a brand that we're all familiar with, and that brand is State Farm, or it's Allstate, or it's Progressive. And then underneath that brand umbrella is a lot of different companies for legal reasons. A lot of times, so you've got fire and casualty and life and health and auto and all these different things. And then when you go into a state, you have fire and casualty of Illinois and auto of Illinois, and you may have all these different things. So four separate entities of State Farm are involved in this, and each of them are named or are sued as part of this litigation. But it started, like I said, in around November of 2024 that the state began an investigation relative to premiums and cancellations and all kinds of goody financial things. And so what I liked about this one is I am constantly amazed at over all of the, I would say, social media grounds where collision repairers and people associated with the collision repair industry are gathered, and you make posts and you still have people go, you're going to make my premiums go up. And no matter whether it's Progressive having to return billions of dollars down in Florida or whatever, it's like, damn, proper collision repair is not making everybody's premiums go up. But the state of Illinois thought, in terms of inflation and normal markets, these things just weren't right. They issued financial warrants. So there were financial warrants issued in this case, for State Farm to comply and turn over the information. And State Farm still refused. They kept sort of whining and complaining. It's kind of the State Farm way. But anyway, they kept whining and complaining, wanting to have, if, at first, whether the state really could ask for that. Then they wanted the state's assurances that they would not be sharing that information with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. And that specific thing is what are to make everybody go, what? Like, why are you specifically worried if this financial information is going to be shared with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners? Well, it tells me that you're probably pretty afraid that if the insurance commissioners in the other states that are not Illinois saw what you were going to turn in, you would probably be facing the same sort of business practice financial audits in maybe every state that you sell insurance in. We'll pause for dramatic effect and for a sip of coffee. So bottom line, the Attorney General in Illinois just got fed up with it and filed the lawsuits. Now, State Farm not complying with warrants or judges' orders is nothing new. In fact, you guys may remember this little thing that happened in 2022. It was a case from a body shop out in Texas over the labor rate survey. You guys remember that stuff? So it was a labor rate lawsuit, and the judge had compelled multiple occasions for State Farm to turn over the data. State Farm kept refusing, and by the time they didn't have another card to play, State Farm just gave up and settled the case. So they sort of have a history of not complying and wanting to turn over the information that is asked of them, specifically when it comes to anything that has to do with money. But the whole wanting assurances that other insurance commissioners through the association, and Erica Eversman as a consumer protection advocate with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. And I'm just thinking, that's what you're not worried about. Like, I mean, that's the one thing you kept mentioning is you wanted assurances that it wouldn't be shared with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. Tells me that you already know what that data or what that financial information is going to prove. So shops, stop feeling guilty for charging for proper repairs. That's safety. That's taking care of consumers. That's taking care of employees. That's taking care of the economy. Anyway, stop feeling guilty for that. Stop thinking that if you do your job right, that premiums are going to, go through the roof and the whole ecosystem of insurance is going to collapse. All of those things. Just make good business decisions for your business, and then let everything else. Because here you have insurers raising premiums, and they're having to return money. They're having to respond to financial warrants, all kinds of things. Just don't let yourself fall into that trap. Well, speaking of falling into traps, one of the biggest traps that ever that ever happened to shops was the proliferation of aftermarket parts. Now, in some ways, yeah, I would go back way, way, way and say some shops sort of brought this on yourself. If we go back to the late 80s, but now you have shops that are readily installing parts and ordering parts because they show up on an insurance company's estimate. You get some assurances or promises that the parts are warranted and all. Well, it just doesn't matter. So in some recent cases, I got asked again about how do you get the weekly recall and decertification list from CAPA. Now, kudos to CAPA, which is technically Intertech, right? Intertech kind of, I don't know, like owns or runs CAPA. Kudos to them that they make all of this information available. They are a very transparent company. So I give them lots of credit for that. But so this is an email that came in. As you can see, I get the emails on Monday morning. So I'll get the weekly and then I'll get a monthly. I will say that my preference now is monthly, to just kind of it just lessens what's in my in tray or what I have to track when I have to go back and find things. A lot of these I don't open every week and look at. I get busy. But I do like to go to that monthly summary and then pull it up and really take a good look at it. So you can see all of the reports that are available to me on the Monday morning to open up and go through. I can go through the parts updates. I can go through what parts are applying for that. I can go through verification list and decertification. So what I'm really interested in is the decertification list. And those are the parts that had previously been CAPA certified, previously been sold, possibly they're installed on customer cars driving around. Some of these lot or these different ones have been kind of in process for a while. How CAPA or the distributors of CAPA handle complaints um, are still up for debate. Across the industry over the years, we've had this discussion because the CAPA people would love to go to the insurance companies and they have these meetings and go, oh, we have less than a 2% or a 1% return rate. And you're like, I'm calling BS, right? Like I'd poll all my shops and go, how often are you sending these parts back? And they're like, oh, all the time, Kristen. So what that process is of complaints, validating a complaint, and then actually pulling that part because it doesn't meet the compliance, we don't really get a straight answer on that. There are some things that Kev is very transparent on. If you go back 3 or 4 episodes on Collision Coffee Talk, you can find the wonderful piece of investigation that was done by Toby Chess, where he takes some Toyota CAPA certified or certified parts and kind of breaks down and goes over them or whatever. But how do you get on this list? So if you want this weekly email or if you want monthly, what do you got to do to make that happen? Well, it's not that hard. So like I said, I give them credit. You just go to capacertified.org. This is their website. When you're on the website, all you have to do is this little button up here that says request with a drop down arrow. If you hit that, you're going to get up here where you can register to receive CAPA emails. And all you got to do is enter your information. And then down here in email subscriptions, just click the ones you want. Now, if you want to see all of the parts, monthly or weekly, awesome. If you just want to see the decertified part reports, awesome. How we use these is your customers are typically told, and I was told, I think when I got into claims and I was working with these companies, I got all kinds of stories. Some of the stories I got were we sell parts that are from manufacturers that also make the OE parts. That one sounds good. It sounds like there's like this, if you go back, see, like I'm a movie and a TV junkie. If we go back and we think of the I Love Lucy episode where they're working on the chocolate, line, the assembly line, and they're trying to put the chocolates in the box, but some hit the floor, they're eating some or whatever. They make it sound like it's one big assembly line, and all the parts are coming down, and one box goes in a box and gets stamped OE, and another one goes in a box and gets stamped aftermarket. That sounded that's not how that works either. I may have a manufacturer that may also have something they make for an OE, completely different tool and die, all that kind of stuff. Then we get taught, well, the parts are tested. There's a difference between being force tested or crush tested versus crash tested. Um, and then we're told that we have less than a 1% or 2% return. So most people, even on adjusters, I'd say all adjusters, have no idea that there's this weekly decertification. So parts that previously you were told were awesome, were as good as the OE, were warranted, had been through all of this, that they come back and go, oh shit, sorry. Yep, we gotta take these off. I love it when the recall notices say, could cause injury or death. I mean, but that's legally they have to say that, but it's just kind of scary to think, here's a part. Some of these parts that get recalled are on cars that are 4, 5, 6 years old and get decertified. And it's like, how many years, how much is out there? The way they do these sometimes is they decertify a lot. So that lot number gets decertified, but that part and all of its other lot numbers, so that they had 16 lots of the hood. They decertify one lot and they sell the other 15. That's sort of scary when you think about what's out there and how are those parts kind of checked on. And they're not required to do a lot of that reporting. Like I said, I do give kudos to CAPA and Intertech for the transparency that they do have, that I don't think they really have to. But But definitely take a look at these reports. They're nice to go over with customers when customers are electing, what parts they want to have on their car and whether they want to pay the difference between OEM or aftermarket or used or whatever. You can just say, hey, here's the thing. By the way, that little pull off yellow sticker or whatever, I'm gonna give that to you because I'm not tracking it. And I think that's part of the what shops have to understand is you're obligated. You installed the part, you're either obligated to inform the customer that they should be tracking this information to see if their parts ever show up, or you should. There's not necessarily like, like you think about when the OEs have a recall and people send out these, you get these little things in the mail that says there's been a recall on your vehicle. That don't happen around crash parts. So definitely, if you want to get on that list, it's really easy to do. I say they're very, very transparent with it. Now we're gonna. I'm all for and hurting people's feelings. And I got somebody that was all mad, a corporation all mad last week. Oh, we should talk about this. This one's funny. A corporation all mad last week because one of the episodes of Coffee Talk caused some action across the country and lots of shops and people picking up the phone and calling different people that worked for that company and asking a lot of questions. And they were pretty mad about it. And I'm like, yep, I'm happy about it. And they're like, all she ever does is clickbait. Yep, that's why it's called social media, is you're supposed to get clicks and views and likes and all that stuff. So when you're thinking about advertising with somebody, you usually ask them, what's the size of your audience? How many clicks do you get? How many views? Whatever. It's like, this is the internet. What do you think the internet is about now? It's supposed to work. But yeah, clickbait can be true. And, so I'm not opposed to hurting people's feelings, but we did have a really interesting conversation over the last couple of weeks. Here's my goal with Collision Coffee Talk every morning. I get up, it's my Monday, I'm going to start my day. My day starts early. Anyway, I'm at that age that really does happen when you get older. You just start getting up earlier and you start going to sleep earlier too. But I'm at that age. I get up in the morning. Um, we wanted this to be like if you were hanging out and we were drinking our coffee on a Monday morning talking about what had gone on over the weekend and what was up. I think it's very important that everyone in this industry, not just the few select people that go to events, get to sort of hear different opinions and what people are thinking. That you don't just kind of only get what's sort of whitewashed and pushed out to you through press or push to you through maybe it's a jobber or a vendor that comes into your shop and they're too scared to say things because they're afraid of the fallout or what would happen if somebody complained whatever. So this is supposed to make you have conversations about difficult things. That's the whole point. I had a news show 5, 6 years ago called, what do you call it? Collision Headline News or CHNN, the Collision Hub News Network, right? So we did a news show where it was just kind of industry news and it got boring. So I stopped doing it. Like I didn't want to do industry news. We wanted to do more discussion based things. So this is a discussion that we've had over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to have it with you here and get your feelings. Is an insurer's money any good here? Now, I cropped out, all of the people's faces and everything because this isn't about them and this isn't about craft or any of that stuff. It's sort of about should the collision industry, which does not include insurance companies, I don't know how many times people, they're part of our business. No, they're not. You don't get invited to their crap. So I don't know why you're inviting them to your stuff. I have never gone to an insurance claims conference and had anyone from the collision repair side there. Not a single body shop has ever been a part of that. So why they're always invited it just shows the dependency, or you're giving them more power than they should have over this industry and its life. But when we sit back and look at this, and over this week in Vegas, there's going to be a lot of insurers and insurer representatives, and they're going to be running around in their little sports coats and whatever, and going to meetings and going to parties and going to lots of things. And a lot of people are going to follow them around like little puppies. And they're going to want to get FaceTime with them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that think that FaceTime matters. Over time, you finally, people that get sent to those industry events are not decision makers at all. But folks, just that's why I got to go. Right? It's just, I mean, that's good people with good careers and good, but they're not decision makers. So it's like, yeah, we can afford to have you spend 4 days out in Vegas, going to free parties that everybody wants to take you to dinner. It was the best part of being an insurer at a trade show. Look, when you're a body shop or you're like a vendor or a company, um, nobody talks to you like the same way. Like I really had to learn when you were no longer an insurer that people don't. I, I remember one time a software company took us to dinner and the bill was like 9 grand. I mean, food's not cheap in Vegas, but I'm thinking 9 grand for dinner. That's incredible. But you get to go to all the places, the five-star fancy dinners. You get to go to all those in Vegas. I will tell you this, I never went out to eat at any of those places and I saw any body shop people being taken to dinner there. It was just always the different insurance companies and we were waving each other in the corner. But all right, there's going to be insurers everywhere. And I think we really have to have a conversation. Did tell everybody this was going to be my SEMA edition, right? Over who's in the room and are they allowed to be there? And sometimes the answer is no. And it is becoming more and more vital that I hate to call them industry leaders because I really think that's giving them way too much damn credit. But the people that are seen in industry leadership, it's about time that they started feeling protective of it. Like nothing good, if we look back over the course of history over all of these damn associations and stuff we've done, everybody's been trying to network and mutually get along and go to each other, have all these insurers at our meetings for 30 something years now. And what good has it done? We're not in a better place at all. We're probably in one of the worst places we've ever been. So maybe it's time we just say no and we don't let them in the room and we don't let them participate. And this is one of those things where, all right, body shops, if you think we need more technicians, if you think tech schools should be funded better, you should do it. I'm not a fan of insurance companies being involved in this type of thing. And there'll be more grip and grins and photo opportunities and all that stuff over the next 3 or 4 days out in the desert. But it shouldn't be allowed. Now, great that an insurance company, State Farm's got their name all over everything lately that seems to have anything to do with the future education of future employees. And it really chaps my hide in a lot of different ways. You have an insurer that has gone across the country and systematically rolled back labor rates to, I don't know, pre-2000. In some cases, labor rates are dropping up to 20%. So it was $75 last month. This month you called shops and told them you were only going to give them 60 or you were only going to give them 50 in some of these things. So you're going across the country, you're rolling back labor rates. You're refusing to pay for proper repair procedures. That's one thing. Then you're refusing to pay for materials. Like it's just you're chopping body shops off at the knees. So you're taking money away. Why would these kids want to come into this industry, State Farm, when you're behaving the way you are? Is it disingenuous that you take a victory lap of grip and grins for photos to try to attract people into the industry you are attacking? And there's no way around it. And I think we really have to just be honest, whether it's State Farm or Allstate or Progressive or whatever, you're attacking this industry. You're attacking the independent repairer. You're attacking the technicians. You're taking money away from them through labor lines, through labor rate, etc. And then you want to run around and take a photo? I mean, is it just a tax thing? Like you're going to save all kinds of money by not paying properly and the proper rates. And then you're going to take the money that you saved and you're going to go donate it in a nonprofit scenario where you now get a tax credit. So you've reduced the amount of taxes a state's going to get because now everybody's payroll's lower. So we're not, the people in the states aren't making the same amount. So you've reduced that. And then you're going to reduce your liabilities further by taking tax deductible donations. It just feels wrong. And I mean, I think we know, and we can all think of situations where we can say, your money's not welcome here. You're not welcome here. Like the power of no. I just think we're there. I really think that there has to be sort of this pride. Is it pride? Like, should we say that, you don't need their money, don't want their money in a lot of ways. And this is one that just bothers me. We've had over the last couple of weeks, several people within the industry, we've had a lot of conversation about this and One, I say there's some responsibilities of body shops. If you believe this and you want to support this and you think this needs to happen, then you need to get on these boards and work with these tech schools and help them raise funds and do what they need to do. So that's step two, and or step one, and then step two is insurers should not be a part of this. They should not be welcome here. And I think that across the board, lots of people through the end of 25 and through 26, it's you're going to have that conversation, and it sucks because I can remember very vividly having conversations about uh, like the collision industry conference CIC, and people telling me that, well, Kristen, if we didn't allow the insurers to be here, then a lot of these people wouldn't come and a lot of these companies wouldn't sponsor. And I'm sitting there shaking my head and going, if I could count to the best of my knowledge, all these sponsors in this room aren't making money off insurance companies, the paint companies, the sandpaper companies, all the software. They're making money off body shops writing checks for all those products. If they don't want to sponsor something because the insurers aren't here, then you have your answer on whether they ever should have been here to start with. Like it is what it is. I, it's time. It's one of those things. Every year when I would go to um, a conference. I would sit there and I would watch the insurers get on stage, and we'd put them on panels, like anything they were going to say mattered. And then they get to do this victory grip and grin check stuff where it makes it sound like they really care about our industry. But I mean, come on, guys, if you cared about our industry, you would not be behaving the way you're behaving on claims right now. If you cared about your customers, you wouldn't be behaving that way. All right, let's talk about the sham fram or the fram sham, whatever you want to talk about it. This one is one to following up a little bit about sort of the credit market and what Carlisle said. We posted Gerber's acquisition of Joe Hudson publicly last week. We didn't hold that one up for coffee talk. We just let it out. That one's, I always say that acquisition's a little different. Gerber was a very financially stable. They've done on their umbrella well. They were not refinancing debt for their acquisition of Joe Hudson. But so what is this? So First Brands is the umbrella that they own Trico, they own Fram, they own a bunch, and they just sort of out of the blue in September announced bankruptcy. And in a lot of ways, no one really saw it coming. Now, how did it happen? They were on a path where they were doing sort of a major acquisition once a year. Now, what's interesting about this company is there's different ways in which their acquisitions and debt is financed, and some of it's based on inventory and warehousing of whatever. And so that's a little bit different than what's kind of going on in our industry. But they were on such a path of acquisitions, adding sort of a major one every year, that it all sort of snowballed. And it's one of those things where you look up and then they could not get some funding and suddenly they're in bankruptcy. And that really resonates if you go back to like what Carlisle said about sort of the debt, the credit industry kind of starting to have some issues, and it's worrying in a lot of ways. This one's really interesting. So they have $2.3 billion in missing funds. So you have this list of debtors. So now the company's filed bankruptcy. These people are coming for their credit, what was used, I guess, collateral or whatever, and it ain't there. And then there's funds missing. There's equipment that was used, like equipment's missing. I guess inventory is missing. I mean, this is just crazy. The federal government is now involved in doing an investigation, but 2.3 billion is missing. That is not a small number. When we look across the creditors on this list that's looking for their money, there are some correlations to the collision repair industry. Bloomberg did a very, very good podcast. It's only like 15 minutes long. You can kind of listen to them break this down, and you'll hear some names that are very familiar to everybody in this industry that are involved in this and some of the crossover that it has. It's really caused a lot of angst and anxiety inside that credit market. So the whole business of private financing debt and credit and kind of all that is going to come under review after all of this, because it just feels like it was a shell game. And they can't really decide if this was intentional or just mismanagement, ignorance, or whatever. But how did you get $2.3 billion is just gone out of thin air, out of everything. So we'll be interested to sort of watch this one as it finishes. It feels very Enron like as we're starting to like listen to all of it unravel. Like I said, Bloomberg Financial Podcast did a fabulous podcast on it. Rachel sent that to me last week, and I was listening to it, and like I feel like it's a murder mystery podcast. Like I feel I feel like I'm invested for the next episode, and where this is going to go. So lots to keep track of. All right. New House bills have been introduced in Michigan, and it's got the Michigan Towing Association all up in arms. Some of you are going to read this and go, wow, this sounds real familiar, like California, Oklahoma, et cetera. So there's all of these states. You have insurance industry lobbies that are trying to affect change on their severity by changing what you can get in towing and storage. When if total losses are going to become over like around 50% of reported claims, then obviously that's a big part of how they can either lose money or save money. So they put this post up on October 28th that four bills were introduced into the House floor. Those bills are listed for you there. You can look them up. I haven't had much time to pull them and read them. I've not really worked with a Michigan Collision Repair Association or like know that activity. So Michigan's never been one of those states where I watch a lot. I hate Michigan's a PIP state. And in the world of insurance claims, PIP is just, I never got it. I'm just glad I never worked in a PIP state. You'd be like, I don't understand. Like, I got to have $10,000 in bills before I can go for it. It was a little crazy. So, it's got some pricing caps on labor and fees, storage caps of $25 a day, accident site cleanup cap of 25. And then there's a part of the bill that means you have to have a signed contract before you can remove a vehicle from an accident scene. If the customer goes by ambulance and a lot of things, like, is that even possible if the state or the city's calling you out? There's a possible, if you do tow a car without a contract, the operator can face 90 days in jail and a federal $500 fine. These bills just seem sort of crazy. I think sometimes you get um, insurance people, agents, and they have a buddy that's on the Senate or that's on sits on the House is a representative, and they get them all fired up. Sometimes we have insurance agents that are set. I think and there really probably ought to be a conflict of interest rule that if let's say I'm an agent for an insurance company and I'm elected to the House, I shouldn't be allowed to introduce bills that affect my business. That would just seem like a pretty good. I mean, if we're gonna talk about Oklahoma here, and that's what happened. The gentleman was a farmer's agent, farmers, and he was part of that. So just maybe that's something that we are to consider is that you just it can't be affecting your industry. Like, if I believe in farmers. I want to support farmers. If I'm a farmer and I get elected, maybe I shouldn't be the one that gets to write and introduce a bill. I can vote on it, but maybe you shouldn't be able to introduce bills and all of that. So this one will be interesting to watch to see how that goes forward. It sounds like from just the quick surface that I've read through that these are directed at non-consent towing and storage facilities. So go back and talk about we read a little bit of the AI lawsuits out of, the lawsuits were against body shops in Ohio. Apparently the insurance company's attorney had tried to use artificial intelligence to write their briefs or their filings. That was last episode. I think you can go back and watch that one if you want to see those. Where that judge very clearly said a body shop's intended purpose is to repair cars, not be towing and storage. So therefore, this law wouldn't apply to them. It'll be really interesting to keep an eye on that. But for right now, the bills in Michigan, as a cursory glance, just appear to be affecting the non-consent typical storage and towing and storage facilities. It would not be body shops, but body shops. If you're in Michigan and you're listening, you probably want to pull those four House bills up and give them a good read through and make sure you don't end up like Oklahoma or California or any of those. And if you see anything disturbing in there, well, let us know. Now let's go on to talk about what happened in Oklahoma. So last year, well, This got posted, I believe Thursday. It was a Thursday. I was super proud, right? So the body shops in the state of Oklahoma have gathered together and they have filed a suit, one suit against the Department of Insurance in Oklahoma and a secondary suit against the governor. Very, very proud. It looks like they have hired a great lawyer who's a constitutional lawyer. And so the Peyton Bell's one of the shop owners there in Oklahoma, and he made this post about how they finally got together and they're fighting back. And this, all of you listening, if you are a collision repairer in the United States of America and you would like to still be one at the end of 2026, you're going to have to do some of this, right? We can't just sit around and go, this is getting terrible. We're going to have to pull some money, put our big boy and girl pants on and go in there and do some fighting. So super proud of Oklahoma for what they've done here. So they've gotten together. Little background in case everyone forgets. Oklahoma passed a bill first of this year. You can go back and read all the coverage on it. I think there were a few minor changes, like so tear down rate was capped at $65 an hour, and only the Department of Insurance could adjust that labor rate. And I believe in the original bill, there was something that said you couldn't, oh yeah, until July 1st of 2030. I think they sort of changed that a little bit before the final versions went through. But it was setting the teardown rate at a maximum of $65 and 4 hours. Prior to any teardown, you were going to have to complete and provide an itemized estimate, and they were capping storage at like $39 a day for most vehicles. EVs got a little bit more, and if a vehicle was over like 30 foot, it got a little bit more. But this was an egregious, like you're trying to control small business in a lot of ways. Now, I'm really sad that the insurance companies can't get their act together and handle claims a little bit faster. But it just was a wild jump. The initiator, one of the Senator Lonnie Paxton there that introduced this bill was an insurance agent, and so of course he was mad and got himself fired up, as do most agents and or insurance adjusters, when shops actually start charging correctly for total losses. Yes, they're going to be a profit center. No, we're not going to take less for them because we don't repair them. We're repair facilities. If we have to waste time on something we don't get to repair, we will be compensated for that. So these suits, fantastic. We'll just go over them a little bit here. My mouse doesn't even want to wake up this morning, which is crazy. Okay. So there are two of these. They read basically the same. One is against the Oklahoma Department of Insurance, and the other one is against the governor as well. They're asking for sort of an immediate injunction, which basically would say that those House bills, those Senate bills, are not enforceable until it has been fully litigated. So that would give all shops across Oklahoma sort of a break. You wouldn't have to be subject to complying with all of that while it goes through this whole process of litigation. I thought very interesting. Obviously, the plaintiffs are the Oklahoma Autobody Association, which lists themselves as having 61 member shops as part of this filing, right? And then you have a bunch of individual shops over here and businesses that have kind of joined it. You've got, and we'll give them some props. So you've got Allen Autobody. You've got Bell Autobody, which we saw Peyton's post there. Nate's Dent Repair, McConnell Collision and Customs, GW and Sons, Carol Martin Paint and Body, Bethel Collision Center, Ikejia. I'm going to say it wrong. I feel like suddenly I'm hungry. Okay, Collision, S&S Paint and Body, Auto Logic, Collision Safety Consultants of Oklahoma, and Car Physician. So just amazing. We're going to be watching this and see where it goes. It got filed. You can see the filing date there is October 30th. That from there, the filing will happen, service will happen. But now you have an attorney general and a governor that will be on notice that don't believe that those House bills are constitutional. So it'll be really interesting to watch that go through. But just shout out Oklahoma. Like from the heart center of America comes just a really good we're not going to take it response. And so all shops, just pay attention. over this session, if your state is currently active in a session, so everybody should probably be entering their fall session right now, we're going to have lots of bills in every state start flooding. This is what happens when the insurance companies have a lobby. They're going to try to affect this difference in everywhere that they go. So be very, very on point. Pay attention. Don't let something sneak through. If you are a state association, this is what you're supposed to do. It's not golf outings and barbecues and other stuff. This is this thing that you should be watching, is making sure nothing like what's going on in Michigan with a bunch of different House bills that are around towing and storage. Just that's what you should be watching and paying attention to. So maybe no on the golf tournaments for this year, maybe yes on either hiring a lobbyist or a lobbying consultant for your shop state so that they can watch those and update you for any. There are lots of lobbyists that represent multiple companies, so it's not like they're a dedicated lobbyist just for you, but you could find one and those fees are a little bit more reasonable and maybe your membership kicks in and then that lobbyist tracks that stuff for you. But by all means, you're going to have to keep an eye on it. I expect over the next year, every state's sessions will be active with something that has to do with insurance. And if it has to do with insurance, it's going to have to do with you, whether it's insurance companies and how they'll file policies and rate changes and other things, or whether it's going to be an insurance company pushing a bill to change what you're paid. Okay. Um, I don't go to a lot of I don't go to any. Okay, I don't go to any trade shows really. Over time, it's the same thing over and over. And the way the internet works, the interwebs, right? We don't have to go to trade shows to really see things anymore like we used to. There was a time in this industry, I want to go back to the glory days of NACE, right? Where if I wanted to see something new, I wanted to touch something, kind of play with it, work with it, specifically large equipment like frame racks and stuff like that. Then I had to go to a trade show. That was NACE. NACE was amazing. So it was down at the end of the strip. It was at Mandalay Bay. It was far away from the sort of the circus of SEMA, and it was only collision repair. Like the only reason you were in that building was it was collision repair. And so I miss NACE. A lot. I miss NACE a lot. That whole breakup and then we end up stuck with SEMA. Yeah, I'm still not happy with that. But I miss NACE a lot. So but if you're gonna be out at Vegas, if you're gonna be in Vegas for the next couple of days, there's some cool things that you're gonna see. There's some cool seminars and presentations and training classes and lots of opportunities. Please don't go out there and just hit the shows and do the dining. Make sure that if you are going to take the time to be away from your work, that you use that to explore and research. We're going to talk about business intelligence and acumen and all that a little bit later on today. But there's a lot of people I'd love for you to go see. Our ProStat people are going to be stuck sort of in the back of the upper West Hall, or North, yeah, West Hall. Go by and see the ProStat people, and what all they've got going on and how, there's just no way you're going to paint cars without having anti-stat. And that's not a wipe I do to a plastic bumper before I put sealer on it, right? We're going to be treating those panels throughout the process, for millage, ADAS, there's lots of different reasons. Ooh, see the automatic camera. Like, see if we can get it. Okay. So go by and see those. BASF's got a smaller presence than they've ever had, but go by and see the team of BASF. Go by and visit with my Celette guys. So Celette has been really working hard to kind of think of a lot of different things that the industry needs. And they're trying to do that um, with sort of a different place of importance, like coming up with, kind of what does the industry need, and then looking at it from sort of a different importance level of what maybe other equipment companies do. One of the things that Celette did that I'm super happy for and super proud of, is their AI web tools that are available. You don't have to have Celette equipment to still subscribe to their web tools. It will give you access to their measurement database that goes back to the 50s. It's CAD data, so it's computer data. It's not after sales data. So many of our equipment companies get cars after production when they're on dealer lots, and they use exemplary measurements from those, and that's sort of what we're working with. Um, I love this CAD data, and I love knowing, really where the numbers are and how that works. They've paired that with um, tram gauges now and the ability for us to do a lot of quick checks. So I don't have to have this dedicated measuring system, benches, anything to really do quick measurements inside my blueprinting. Or if you're in a teardown bay and you're trying to make an assessment of whether this vehicle's maybe more of, can go more fast track style repair, or whether it needs to go through and hit the structural department to be measured in more detail, or actually there is corrective things that need to be done. Well, they keep taking that further and further, and now they have the software, the web tools is voice activated, and you can talk to the software. So I can be at the other end of the car, and I know a lot of people like to say, "Oh, I've got this app," but I really can talk to my computer and tell it different measuring points. I can tell it a lot of things. I'm going to show you guys and let you hear um, this sort of working. And you, if you make it by the Celette booth at SEMA, well, they'll let you play with it and let your voice be the tool as well. Introducing Celette's newest innovation, Voice Vehicle Search. Now you can find the correct make, model, and generation simply by using your voice. No more scrolling or typing, just speak naturally, and your vehicle appears in seconds.
Sure, I can help with that. Could you please tell me the brand or make of the car you're looking for?
2025 Honda CR-V.
I found several options for the 2025 Honda CR-V. Let me list them for you. 1. Honda CR-V 6th Generation RSAWD 2023 to present.
Easy, right? Not to mention it works for all of Celette's tools that require searching their database.
I found a few options for the 2025 Honda CR-V. Let me list them for you. 1. CR-V 6th Generation AWD.
Well, I think I just found my new best friend. You can also use the photo search feature and upload images of the vehicle directly from your desktop for fast and reliable identification. Or scan the QR code and upload the photos from your phone into the system. Celette's intelligent recognition instantly identifies the model, helping you access the right data in record time. For more information, visit Celette.com. All right, so it is amazing to me and Larry how many times we go out to shops, and one of the biggest problems, whether it's a post repair inspection or whatever it is, and we're looking at the data that's provided, that the technician selected the wrong car. And sometimes we take for granted what we think technicians know and don't know. And so there's more to what this voice activated AI will do for Celette. If you are going to be in Vegas over the next week, or next 3 or 4 days or whatever, please go by and play with it. We're really excited about what Celette is investing and putting time in and trying to help tools be um, more supportive. Like, there's never, AI is not going to do the job for you, but how can we make AI and voice activation? Because technicians have their hands, we have our hands on the measuring tool, we have our hands on the car. Like, how do we be able to make this work a little bit better? And tell it. And I love being able to say, all right, here's the car, boom, find it, great. Okay, I want point 12, 42, 16, 18, 19. All right, now I'm measuring point 12. Now, I mean, like, just to be able to do all that is great. And then I think you would really like to see um, this new tram gauge evolution and what it does. Like, I would have your, now really your estimators can do upper body, lower body, comparative measurements on suspension. Like, there's nothing we can't do now that allows me very quickly. And then it automatically transfers all my numbers from my tram gauges into the software, and then has the report ready for me. So it's, I mean, I was joking the other day with the guys. I was like, I can measure a car with a ham sandwich in my hand these days, the way I can talk back and forth to it. So that's really nice. Well, So I got to talk about something else that's gonna be part of SEMA that I really um, got involved in a very deep discussion last week. Well, several. But I have a record number of cases that are present, whether it's insurance companies suing body shops or I've never seen this many suits. And so bad. They're very bad, the suits. But and that's fine. It keeps me busy. And then we get involved in these deep conversations. And I got involved in a very, very deep conversation with a company. And so this is for if you're going to go out to Vegas, whether you're an insurer, whether you're a jobber, whether you're a vendor, whether you're a manufacturer, whatever you are. These are some things that I want you to think about. Has the insurance industry lost control? And are they now victims of third parties? Um, we worried about this. So the people listening, I did get a call a couple of weeks ago from a retired person, and she was like, I can't believe you've started to talk about all the stuff we were worried about in the early 2000s. And I was like, well, it's everything that y'all, those people are my boomers who retired, was afraid of happened. And it was, I want to say it was slow to happen, but it happened. So have the insurance companies lost control, and are they in fact now just victims? Um, and there's sort of this illusion of control. And I was going through this process with some court cases, and then this company came along to ask a lot of questions. So um, lots of companies want to have consulting sessions. I love it. It's great. I love to talk about my perspective on what is or isn't working in this industry is obviously drastically different than almost everybody else's in the industry. And I'm okay with that, right? I always say over and over, there's got to be a right and a left so that we can have a middle. I'm fully aware that I'm out here on the fringe rescue boat all alone. I'm totally fine with it out there. So this conversation, we worried when I first started in claims, um, when there was a question or a problem, we handled it internally. You would sometimes take meetings and you would get other people's opinions on whatever, but we ran our and controlled our own data. And we looked at anomalies or spikes or whatever, and then we determined ways in which we were going to fix it, whatever we thought that would be. But everything was we were in control of the business. There was nothing going on in the claims department that there wasn't someone that was in control of that particular silo of the business. And when I say in control, they had 100% totality on that topic. They understood it. We didn't have any dependency. Software was nice when it came along. When we went from handwriting estimates to computerized estimating, that's great. But we weren't hostage by it by any means. We had multiple providers. Plus, we could go back to handwriting when the CAT team first started in the late 90s. They handwrote. Everybody was like, "What? Like, we're gonna have 900 CAT adjusters or whatever. We're not buying them all licenses for software." And then every state you go to, it's going to be different software. So, the first year or so, the CAT team carried around a bunch of crash books in the back of their cars and hand wrote estimates. Like you had a team of people and leadership that could do everything. Well, as time progressed, our boomers, the people that were very much in control, all retired, and we lost the top half of that knowledge. And the fallout from the loss of that knowledge is catastrophic. And when we started to worry about it, there was Project 2000, that brochure of Ed Rust I bring out every now and then, was discussing that. Hey, we're going to have these people age out, and have we really worked to develop what their replacements are? And so some of the solution sounds like, well, you outsource it. And that sounds so wonderful. And we're talking about that a lot for body shops now. What are some things you're going to outsource because you're probably not going to be able to have the staffing to do it? But there's been a cost for that. And there's a lot of research on it. So it's like Kristen has her opinions, but there's a lot of research on it. And I have a company that's trying to design something for one particular insurer. And the insurer has no idea about this topic or anything about having to fix it. So it's in their business. It's costing them money, but there's nobody on their staff that can figure out what to do with it. So they're talking to a third party vendor. There's no one on that third party vendor that knows anything about the problem. They're software designers and they can if somebody will tell them what to build, but you have this company that just went, yeah, we'll fix it for you. And then now they're out interviewing different people in the industry to try to help them come up with a product that actually works. And I'm like, you got to be, why were you even called with this problem in the first place? Like, this should have been something that was handled in house, much less be completely dependent on a third party. And that's sort of where we're at right now. Everybody thinks that no matter what our problem is, there's a piece of software that's going to fix it. We can't research repair procedures. Let's get a piece of software that'll automate that. We're not writing good estimates. Let's get a piece of software that'll automate that for us. And what happens over time is you lose the knowledge and then you become a victim of these third parties. So the studies on it, three key elements to keep in mind. What happens when any company becomes dependent on third parties? When you can't think on your own and when something goes wrong, you need somebody else to sort of fix that for you. There are three key elements of that. So number one is what's called the knowledge transfer deficit. And that's that our boomer, that top half of people that could do anything sort of peeled off. We got lost. And instead of like rebuilding those, we outsourced them. So core functions of your business are outsourced. And then once that outsourcing takes place, then internally you're like, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. And so you no longer actively work to develop your internal people. So now all of your specialized knowledge lies with an outsourced vendor. There's no one in the company that has that. Um, I always think about the old days of the crash department or the training department in Bloomington. And however you feel about the company, those guys were amazing. And Lisa Medved, who's with Rivian now, was part of that. Absolutely amazing. Like their knowledge base, what they knew, and technical. We're talking about what they knew about cars and electronics, and it seemed like everybody had a specialty. Bob was the transmission guy. Carl Spain was electronics. Like these guys were just like you listen to them talk, and you're like, I'm never going to be that smart when they were going through things. But as they reached retirement, we never backfilled them with anybody because we weren't hiring and sort of bringing that knowledge up. And so now all of your specialized knowledge lies with a vendor. If that knowledge isn't in-house, you're now crippled. The second thing is you lack visibility and control. So when you take those core knowledge silos and you outsource them and you're no longer seeing that every day, you can't be proactive with it. So in other words, I lose the ability to see all of the core issues in my business and keep control over them, whether that's being nimble and proactively managing, training, doing spot audits, processes, whatever. And now I've got this gap. So what happened is what used to be maybe a little stream is now the Grand Canyon of knowledge gaps. And that gap means nobody within the insurer now fundamentally understands processes, right? And so because they don't understand processes, you can give them a data report that says your part usage, dependability, or whether your alternative parts, or your labor gaps, or your refinish gaps, or your total loss severity, or your whatever. You can give them a report, but because they don't understand the processes involved, they're unable to figure out what an execution plan should be, or well, how are we going to fix this? They don't know how to act on the information. So then we just becomes data for the sake of data, or really dumb decisions get made. You think you can, well, we're gonna sign a contract on ADAS calibrations and we'll put them in levels because our software vendor told us that was smart. And now you're actually doing more damage by trying to simplify it or instead of figuring out, well, what's the problem and how do we get this handled the right way, because nobody left knows how to attack a problem. We don't have any problem solvers anymore. We don't have any people that understand data. And back, if I go back, if there was a problem on a data report on KPIs, then we pulled estimates and we figured it out and we went and fixed it. But there's nobody left that really knows anything about why those anomalies or trending behaviors can happen in the data because we lost that knowledge set. Well, the third thing is that you have an erosion within your core competencies. And that means the company will become incapable of performing critical tasks internally. And that's where we are with the insurers. So we've hit that stage three where we have erosion of core I believe that you have an industry, and the reason it's so chaotic and crazy, and for us on the collision repair side, we're like, and what you're doing is not making any sense, is because they don't know what they're doing. And they're becoming completely reliant on these third party vendors. Now, whether that's a CCC or a Mitchell or whoever else shows up at their front door, gives them some sort of presentation and says, if you hire us or use our solution, we promise that we're going to fix this. That can be an ADAS vendor. That clearly hasn't gone well. That's become one of the biggest clusters that we've got right now, whether it's a software provider, whatever that is, because there's no core competency, they're really, really relying on these vendors. Now, what happens if one of those vendors fails? It could be potentially a catastrophic loss on the insurance side. I don't think they're equipped to be able to go, oh, that sucks that those guys went out of business. If we're looking at like Fram and that whole bankruptcy and how a lot of OEs dependent on a lot of those parts and products or whatever, the insurance industry doesn't seem like they really know claims anymore. They're selling policies and making money, but it really feels like those worries have happened. Now, what do we think about this? Well, for body shops, you're sort of getting there. Um, Challenges in the workforce, challenges in the economy are forcing shops to really have to think about changing and look at things about, should you outsource some things? Should you look for other people? I have so many shops that call and you just want an answer. Like you just tell me what I can buy that will fix this or make it go away. And if you do that, body shops, particularly MSOs, pay attention, turn the volume up and lean in. If you become more dependent on third parties and vendors, it will only get worse. It just you become unable to steer your own ship at that point. You become reliant on the vendors you've surrounded yourself with that you believe they're your friends. Kind of like, when an insurance company comes to one of the industry events, we ain't there because you're a friend. We want free dinners. So and drinks. I did some damage at Vegas during my time. But you really lose that ability to make decisions and you become totally dependent on vendors. And when stuff starts going wrong and you're looking at your financials and they're going in the red, you start to panic and you just start calling all these vendors and going, we got a problem, you got to fix it. Whether that's you're asking for more discounts or you want them to do free training or whatever, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing if you're a body shop group and you're asking people because you're having a poor performance that some people should come in and give you free training. That sort of tells me that you don't think you have the competency internally to be able to do that and fix those. But we're sort of there. And so this week, go to everything you can. If you're going to take the time to go out there, don't stay out late and go to some stupid party and go catch the latest Cirque du Soleil. That's not the reason you're in Vegas. Attend every session of everything you can and listen with critical thinking. Don't listen to go, oh, I gotta buy that then, or I gotta do this. Ask yourself a lot of internal questions and then go ask those people a lot of questions and then walk the floor and look for competitive products or anyone else in that space and get lots of different opinions and really start thinking for yourself. If I look back on the collision side of the business and I think of who's been successful and who has stayed successful, those are owner operators that are really good at critical thinking and they're not dependent on other people. They really shape their own business and they make their own decisions. And when they let a vendor work with their business, it's because it's been their choice, and they're totally in control of that relationship. They're not dependent on asking somebody to fix all your problems. No one can fix your problems. Even if you're a member of my 20 group, or I can't fix your problems. I don't know your business the way you know it, and I don't know your market the way you know it. You can take bits and pieces of information from lots of different people. But go to SEMA and think critically. Or if you don't make it SEMA, if you've got a show coming up or you're reading the collision news or whatever, you're watching a video, just think critically. Like, please don't become dependent. I really don't think the insurance industry right now is capable of running a claims department. And claims is more than just, are you answering the phone calls and opening and closing claim files? Like, if we look at it, I don't think they're capable of understanding total losses. I don't think they're capable of understanding collision repair, ADAS, all of these things they have no way of understanding it. So because they don't, they can't come up with a process for it. So they're just looking for third parties, whether it's contracts that they're signing with third parties. And these third parties are going to flood in. Those are your Aztecs and your Opuses and your, I mean, it sounds great. Why wouldn't they want to come and get a contract with an insurance company? There's a price for that. And it's a heavy price. So it's just real important that we take control. Just take control. Use this week to think about how you're going to get control back, not looking for ways to give it up to other people. But I guess my thing is if you're going to be out there, then please take advantage of the education. And education means you go and sometimes listen to things you don't agree with just because you want to get that other opinion or that other thought process. And you want to ask yourself, can you intentionally or intelligently debate why you don't believe in something or you disagree with somebody, or are you just like, oh, I don't believe that. Why? Because I was told not to do that. Why were you told that or whatever? There's a lot. There's a lot on the line for a lot of people over the next, I would say, 8 months. The next 8 months are pretty critical. All right, let's finish it up with what is on the shelf. Well, of course, because I know this episode's going to make a lot of people angry. I'm going to get a lot of hate calls over the whole should State Farm be allowed to be involved in collision charities or go to events. That one's going to, I will spend the rest of the afternoon answering those questions. All right, so I'm a big book fan, as you can obviously tell. I read a lot of books, and if you're in my 20 group, then you've had me probably shove this book down your throat about 100 times. But it's called In the Defense of Troublemakers, and it's just a kind of the power of what happens when people either finally stand up and say no, or finally stand up and say, I got a completely different way that I think we should be looking at this. No good things happen through agreement. That just, there's nowhere in history where that happens, right? Good things, powerful things, fundamental, foundational pivots happen through disagreement. And we need more people to stand up and go, no, just no. Whether it's, I'm not, again, kudos, Oklahoma. Thank you for standing up and saying no, Oklahoma, and having the courage to file a lawsuit. You sued the governor, for Christ's sakes. I'm pretty excited about that one. Like, I was like, yes, I am in, all for it. Like, super happy for everybody. All right. Have a fantastic week if you are traveling. Safe travels. Hope you get there good and you get home good. Hope you do not bring back the SEMA flu. Everybody seems to come back from Vegas with some sort of crud when the week is over. I've got a couple of social media and camera people out there running around. I don't want them to bring the crud back to me. I have enjoyed being healthier since not having to go to a bunch of industry events, and I think I'm going to keep that trend. So everybody have a great week, and we will see you next week on Collision Coffee Talk. Thanks, everybody.